New York Governor Kathy Hochul provided an update Monday regarding her state's response to aid those that have been impacted by Hurricane Fiona. Fiona is the first named Atlantic storm to make landfall since July, and the first hurricane to hit land in the U.S. this year. The storm caused a total electric blackout on the island, as forecasters warn it could bring up to 25 inches of rainfall and dangerous mudslides. Hochul noted that New York has one of the highest Puerto Rican populations in the U.S. She vowed that, quote, New York State will do everything in our power to help them.
In a disaster, a weather event, I have the dream team involved here, and that'd be our Commissioner of Homeland Security and Emergency Services, Jackie Bray, well seasoned in every kind of cataclysmic event. So great to have you here in New York State. Catherine Garcia, the Director of State Operations, once again, is also the two of them and all of us working through the weekend to make sure that we're responding to the needs of people in many parts of our state as well as Puerto Rico. Very pleased to be joined by our Secretary of State, Robert Rodriguez. Many of our staff members, our team, part of our administration, have family members back in Puerto Rico, are under stress, are anxious about their well-being, which is why we wanted to do this briefing, because we know there's so many residents of New York City, New York State, who have close family connections. They either came from Puerto Rico and the Dominican Republic, two areas that are being hit right now by a hurricane, and we want to make sure that people know we are being very responsive. Also want to just extend my gratitude to the New York State Assembly Puerto Rican and Hispanic Task Force. They have been so engaged with our team throughout the weekend, especially Chairwoman Maritza Davila. They're ready to help. They're partnering with us, and I want to tell them how grateful I am for what they're doing as well. So basically, it's not an unknown fact, we have a long history, long connection with the people of Puerto Rico, and I'm very proud to be the governor of a state with one of the largest Puerto Rican populations in our nation. And when you think about the people who came here in search of the American dream, like many of our forefathers, foremothers, they've really created the vibrant city that we have here today. And that's why we feel that when they're in need, we have to be able to reach a hand out and offer assistance in any way possible. So once again, over the last 24 hours, the island of Puerto Rico has had to endure its destruction at the hands of Mother Nature. It's reminiscent of 5 years ago when we were all just shocked by the scale of devastation on the island. And the images are still very vivid, and they're starting to emerge this time around from Puerto Rico, and it seems we've been there before, and it is not a good outcome. I know people want to hear about the well-being of their friends and family, and I want to assure them that, again, New York State will do everything in our power to help them. And we've always been there for each other, but now is when they need us the most. Fiona is the largest storm to hit since Maria in 2017. And so Puerto Rico has sustained significant damage. We'll have an update on that in a few minutes. But basically, the winds are up to 85 miles an hour, sometimes sustained at that level, sustained in some areas at 100 miles an hour, and roughly 12 to 18 inches of rain over a very short time, and some areas that even saw 30 inches. But while the wind has died down, and that is good, the rain continues to fall and is going to be falling throughout the day and will into the night. And so the island is drenched, and because of this heavy volume, the National Weather Service predicts that there will be catastrophic flooding that will occur over the next 3 days, with potential for landslides and mudslides, particularly in the southern and eastern portions of Puerto Rico, an area that is always vulnerable and has been hit by earthquakes and storms before tropical storms, hurricanes. And once again, the critical infrastructure has been damaged and washed away. And those are roads, those are bridges, especially in the rural mountain areas. I was there not long ago and had a chance to see the rebuilding that's still going on after Maria, trying to create connections and sustainable power lines. But once again, they're being swept away. So we now have over 1 million people without power. I think 100,000 have been restored in San Juan. But most of the island is without power. FEMA's on the ground, and thank God we have a president who's taking a strong approach to this, enlisting all his resources, President Biden, and he's been incredibly responsive, and he knows because of our relationship that New York is there as well. So yesterday I spoke to the governor. We had a lot of communication back and forth, let him know Pierre Lucy I've offered our support. In fact, I saw him recently in person and before this hit, and so we have a good relationship. And what he conveyed to me, I said, you tell us what you need. Tell us what you need. The first thing he said he needed was interesting. He wanted to know if we could send Spanish-speaking police officers to help respond to the needs of citizens, traffic and lifting up and helping remove barriers on the streets. But they wanted people that were trained in law enforcement. So I'm proud to announce after that call last night, we immediately deployed or started to activate police officers. We'll have over 100 troopers from the New York State Police Department on their way to Puerto Rico over this next week. And as the need continues to arise, we'll be ready to offer other resources and support. So what we've already done in a proactive way was reach out to corporate partners, good citizens in our not-for-profit community to coordinate donations of water, sanitary supplies, baby formula. And I'm pleased to say thus far, Delta, JetBlue, Coca-Cola have pledged their support. And we are contacting many other organizations. Literally, as we speak, my team is on the phone right now, just lining up the resources so we can get them down there with the support of our hometown airlines here. And Somos, the Red Cross, Greater New York Hospital Association are sending medical supplies, so we've got that commitment. And the building trades will be supporting our rebuilding efforts as well. So I just want everybody to know we're also focusing on the power grid. I've already spoke last night, one of our team meetings with the Justin Driscoll, the head of the Power Authority, New York State Power Authority, and they're prepared to assist in restoring the grid. But most importantly, here's the message. We will be there for the long-term recovery. We know from the Maria experience, this is not fixed in a day or week or a month. It takes a sustained, concerted approach, and we have experience with our own hurricanes now. I hate to say it, but wasn't that long ago, my first week on the job last year, when we were hit not with one, but 2 hurricanes. So we are more experienced in hurricanes than we ever thought we'd be. But again, it is that ability to mobilize, bring in private sector assets, team them up with our assets, and to work continuously with them to restore the grid. And also, we've helped Puerto Rico. We've weighed in on helping them secure millions and billions of dollars to help them assist in the critical energy infrastructure. And we've helped with assessments in their power plants. I went and visited them in person to help improve the reliability so they're not always so vulnerable every time a storm hits, where we can establish microgrids and other ways to not have one concentrated energy source go down and then the island goes down. So we helped the company there develop their integrated resource plan and shift to less fossil-dependent grids as well, because as happened last time when ships couldn't get through, they couldn't have the fuel they needed to power even the most basic vehicles. So that was a vulnerability last time. And again, this is time we are hoping that the road that was paved to this point will lend itself to a better response, a less long-term impact, but we don't know that. We don't know just yet of how resilient all those measures are and whether they're going to be operationalized in a way that's very good. So basically the storm is not over yet. We are on track to watch the storm very closely, but also the Dominican Republic is also in an exposed way. They're being battered as we speak, and the center of Fiona will persist over the eastern Dominican Republic this afternoon with heavy rain. This will be, again, flash flooding, urban flooding, the eastern portion. So I spoke to the president, Abby Nader, last night, president of the Dominican Republic, along with Congressman Espaillat. We got on a call together, and I said, what do you need, Mr. President? And he's asked for something that we are preparing to deliver as we speak, and that is drones. He said we don't have drones to be able to survey the damage and where resources are needed the most. So we will provide them. That is being undertaken as well. So we know how bad this can get. We've seen how challenges like this bring out the best in people. No one works harder at helping others than New Yorkers, and so I'm really proud that we can be there to assist not just Puerto Rico, but the Dominican Republic should they need it. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to our Secretary of State to give a synopsis of this in Spanish, so people that are listening and concerned about their family members will at least have the assurance to know that New York State is front and center to help our brothers and sisters in Puerto Rico. Oh, you can stand here.
Gracias. Buenos días. Estamos aquí para pasar algunos información y datos a través del huracán y el tormento que está pasando en Puerto Rico. Hay una conexión fuerte entre Nueva York y Puerto Rico por décadas. Hay una historia en que nosotros estamos siempre ahí para respaldar a la isla porque tenemos una diáspora muy fuerte y por muchas décadas entre nosotros y Puerto Rico. Cuando hablamos de lo que está pasando, se recuerda del día 5 años antes cuando fue un huracán de María. En esta temporada estamos viendo con Fiona que hay vientos por 85 por horas de millas de hora de viento y todavía entre 18 y 30 pulgadas de lluvia. Así todavía hay un riesgo de inundación por 3 días más. Si no se pasó el riesgo de huracán, todavía estamos en nivel de tormenta e inundaciones. Sabemos que tenemos 1 millón de personas sin poder y electricidad y hemos restaurado 100,000 personas el poder en San Juan y vamos a trabajar con ellos para asegurar que todavía respaldamos a ellos para poner la infraestructura que es necesario para restablecer la conexión de electricidad a la isla. Estamos en contacto con el presidente Biden y FEMA está trabajando en Puerto Rico en este momento. Hemos hablado también con el gobernador Pierluisi y él pidió por parte de nosotros 100 policía estatal para ayudar a a dirigir tráfico y apoyar a los ciudadanos en restablecer las diferentes partes de la isla cuando las lluvias se paran. Y estamos ahí trabajando con ellos. Al final de esta semana vamos a tener 100 policía estatal en la isla. Estamos trabajando con nuestras corporaciones y sin fines de lucros para recibir donaciones, para asegurar que las necesidades básicas están mandadas para apoyar a Puerto Rico. Y también estamos trabajando con diferentes organizaciones de salud, como somos la Cruz Roja y las diferentes organizaciones para reconstruir, para apoyar a la isla cuando llegamos al tiempo de reconstruir. Estamos enfocados especialmente en la infraestructura de electricidad. Sabemos que todavía hemos trabajado por los últimos 5 años después de María para apoyar a la isla, para asegurar que podemos reconstruirlo mejor que antes. Por los últimos 5 años había $1,000 millones que fue invertido para tratar de ayudar al sistema. Y ya sabemos que después de esta situación vamos a seguir trabajando con ellos para restablecer las conexiones necesarias. Nosotros sabemos que restableciendo el poder es una de las más importantes responsabilidades que tenemos en este momento. Nosotros también sabemos que la gente de Puerto Rico son fuertes, pero no significa que no necesitan ayuda. Estamos aquí para ayudarles y asegurar que reciben la ayuda que es necesario y que merecen. También estamos viendo que la tormenta de Fiona se está moviendo a la isla de la República Dominicana. Estamos en contacto con el presidente Abinader para ver lo que él necesita, si él está pidiendo ayuda por parte de drones para ver el nivel de destrucción y devastación que está pasando para que pueda empezar de mandar ayuda y empezar de reconstruir. Todavía ellos están en el punto centro de Fiona en este momento. Así que estamos aquí para seguir apoyando a nuestros miembros de la comunidad de Nueva York, la comunidad puertorriqueña y la comunidad dominicana durante estos tiempos difíciles. Gracias.
Gracias. So what I would say is at this point is we are continuing to monitor the situation. We have assets ready to be deployed. We are anxious to provide the support that the people of Puerto Rico and the Dominican Republic need at this time. So we've been taking a lot of steps. I also do want to thank Adriano Espaillat for making the connection with Dominican Republic. I spoke also with Congresswoman Nydia Velázquez, who gave us an update on what she was hearing about what's going on in Puerto Rico, and that's when I was able to connect with the governor as well as, again, the New York State Assembly Puerto Rican and Hispanic Task Force. So I'm grateful to them. Is there anything that I've added or anything that came in since we started the conversation? Okay. At this point, I'll take any, as we say, on topic preguntas. Ahí, gracias. Yes.
Governor, so you said 100 Spanish-speaking state troopers, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, in terms of other assets from the state, what other assets do you expect? And does the state coordinate how are companies sending either manpower or equipment?
Yes, we will be coordinating. Do you want to answer that? Yes, we've already spoke with NYPA. That's what we did last time. We're ready to send crews. We've already been in touch with the utilities, NYPA, as well as the workers. You know, our hardworking men and women of labor are anxious to go down and start rebuilding. But I'll let you give more specificity.
Absolutely. So after this type of event, you might see our state supply mutual aid in terms of utility crews. We can provide mutual aid in terms of making sure that communications are up and running, cell phones, radio communications. We can provide mutual aid in terms of helping on the ground logistics and management teams. This is going to go on for a while for Puerto Rico, and you want to cycle folks in and out then. So we are ready to provide all of that and more, but it's also really important that we coordinate with Puerto Rico and that we're sending them what they need. And they are still in the middle of doing a damage assessment now. So the only ask we have so far is for 100 officers, but we are standing by ready to deploy additional state resources.
Anything?
On all the assets and resources that are being sent there, obviously very admirable. I don't think anybody would fault New York for doing that, but you could also say it should be the job of the federal government to provide all those resources. So why does New York need to step in when arguably some of this is the federal government's role?
FEMA's on the ground now. They've been on the ground for several days. They will stay on the ground and coordinate the response. It is very normal whenever there's a significant natural disaster that states ask each other for help. And so that is how we got the request for troopers, for officers. That's how we're sending them. That's how we would expect other requests to come in. And that will be coordinated through FEMA and through the federal response.
But also, they do have lists of states that they go through. For example, search and rescue, the federal government goes to states directly. In fact, there's a list because we offered, but Maryland, and they go through a roll call of other states. So this is it's basically Puerto Rico is the Commonwealth. They're part of the United States. These are our citizens, fellow citizens, and that is why we do this mutual aid as we would do if there were, the flooding in Kentucky. So that's the same similarity, right?
That's right.
On the officers, the troopers, is there any effort to recruit NYPD officers or from any other localities?
So what Puerto Rico needs, as we know so far, is 100 for 2 weeks and then a different 100 for 2 weeks. We're working hand in glove with the New Jersey State Police, who will also be sending troopers down. And if we're unable to fulfill continued requests, we will absolutely work with local police departments, including the NYPD.
Is there a dollar figure what the state is prepared to spend or what you expect this might cost?
We will be coordinating with the federal government. Many of the costs incurred when states provide mutual aid end up being reimbursable by the federal government, so we can't give you any specific budget details now because all of that will get worked out over the coming weeks with the feds.
And that's what the president did last night in announcing was an executive order, declaration of emergency. As soon as the president did that, we knew that there would be a very high reimbursable rate for any activities undertaken by states.
There are already power outages, landslides are predicted. We saw the effects of Maria last a long time. Are there any emergency plans, especially with Puerto Rico being a small island, to have to evacuate people if need be?
Well, that's something, we're in contact every second with them to find out if they need that at this time.
Yeah, so the significant landslides happening on the island right now and the mudslides are concentrated in the south and the east. They are actually concentrated outside of the major population centers, still incredibly devastating for the communities that they're happening in. And assessment is going to be ongoing. We expect, as the Weather Service has said, catastrophic flooding over the next 3 days. we're not going to have a really good picture of all of the needs on the ground until that flooding subsides and people can get into those more remote areas. We'll obviously coordinate it with what they need, but no one is talking about that at this time.
What about evacuating those remote areas that you referred to? Is there a plan now to get those evacuated if we're expecting mudslides?
The authorities in Puerto Rico, oh, I see what you're saying. The authorities in Puerto Rico, the local authorities, the state authorities, and FEMA are coordinating immediate safety response on the ground. So that's a question for them, and I'm sure that they are broadcasting for individual communities what action people need to take.
Would the state take a role in trying to help shelter people who are evacuated, or would that be up to people and their families?
Right now, Puerto Rico set up shelters on the island. They were nowhere near full as of last night and this morning. So I think we're a long way off from that type of conversation. The goal always, when we're responding to natural disasters of any kind, no matter where it is to help people get back to life as quickly as possible. And that almost always means keeping people where they are in as safe conditions as we can.
All right. All said? And off topic, sure.
I'm with the Post. We're trying to figure out why you haven't accepted any invitations to debate Lee Zeldin.
We'll be announcing our fall schedule within a couple of days, so that'll be all clarified by the end of this week. We'll have our full schedule of debate, forums, events we're going to be doing, so that will be out very shortly. I know there's a lot of interest, so thank you for asking.
So are you committing or no?
Oh, I've said all along I will. I said that the first time I was asked months ago. That's never been in question. Your next question.
Your opponent also today was calling for a special session to deal with bail reform. The specific impetus this time was incident at McDonald's on the Lower East Side. I don't know if you saw this. There was a guy with a sort of hatchet who went on this rampage and caused a lot of damage and was menacing people and was released without bail. I just wanted to get your response to that.
No, and the images are disturbing, absolutely, and I understand the concern of the people who are certainly in that location. You know, just a reminder, there's many players in a criminal justice system, starting with the arresting officers who determine what charge to bring, as well as a district attorney who will decide whether or not to stay with that course or to have an upcharge from what is recommended. And so we need to all work together. We're actually asking what the thought process was in the decisions that were just made, because we have a question about it, because they have the discretion to charge in a different way that would make them bail eligible. And certainly the way it was charged now had nothing to do with bail, because they would have been treated the exact same way before any bail laws were made years and years ago. And I think that's when we have to have the honest conversation about what's really going on here. But we need everybody to work together. I am committed 100% to keeping the people of this state safe. And an important part is the arresting officers, police department, district attorneys charging, and the judges doing the right thing as well. That's when we can all work together, and that's exactly what we're doing. All right. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it.